I want to talk about what's going to happen when this great awakening happens in America. Because I believe there will be a great awakening, another one. I don't know when. I don't know if it'll be 2023 or 2053, but there will be a great awakening in America. And I think before we do that, we need to count the cost. Because I'll tell you what will happen when there will be persecution. This renewal of Christianity in America will not be taken kindly by the world. The world will not take it sitting down. So we got to talk about the persecution that is to come. We got to count the cost of this awakening, because the awakening will come at a cost. And to that I say, good. You got to count the cost if you're interested in being a part of this renewal and awakening. There's going to be a cost to it. So the first thing to know about persecution is it's nothing new. One of the themes of my podcast, Politics by Faith, is there's nothing new under the sun. And I think that's the best realization to relieve anxiety, is to disabuse yourself of the notion that whatever you're experiencing is unprecedented. It's not true. There's nothing new under the sun. We do that whenever anything bad happens. And anything in your life, my life, everyone's life, we all do this. We think we're the only one who this has ever happened to. Anytime a bad thing happens, I'm the only person who's ever been through this. Like, no, it's never true. You're not alone. Whatever you're experiencing has happened before to someone. There's nothing new under the sun. So Peter wrote to the churches about the coming persecution. In 1 Peter 4:12, he said, "Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you." I love that. Don't act like something odd is happening. This should be expected. We've gone through 200 or so years in this country of being a Christian country. 400 years if you go back to the Pilgrim's Landing in 1620. So 400 years, we'll say, of being a Christian country. We're not anymore. We haven't been, I should say, the last few decades. But the fact that we've been a Christian nation for so long, that's the odd thing. That's the weird moment of world history. When we return to these Christian roots, then the persecution will come back. And that is to be expected. It's a guarantee, in fact. There's been loosely 3 phases of American culture, recent American culture when it comes to Christianity. And each phase has its own response from Christians. These are outlined by Aaron Renn. I'm stealing them from him. The first phase is the positive world. This is when society has a generally positive view of Christianity. So if you're a good man, if you're known as a good man in town, a good citizen, you're a church-going man. That's part of being an upstanding citizen is you go to church. And if you're a Christian publicly, that's a status enhancer. And Christian moral norms are obvious. And if you violate them, then that's bad. And everyone knows that that's bad and there's negative consequences to that socially. That's the positive world. Then you have a neutral world where society has a neutral stance towards Christianity. It's no longer privileged status, but it's not negative either, right? So you're known as a Christian man and it's not positive, but it's not negative on your social status. It's just kind of neutral. And Christianity is a valid option. There's this big public square of options, and this is one of many options that you could be, and it's fine and all good if that's what's best for you. And then you have the negative world, and that's what we've been in, certainly the past decade, where the country has a negative view of Christianity. And if you're known as a Christian man, that is a social negative, particularly among the elites. And if you espouse Christian morals, that's mean, that's bigoted. You're dangerous. You're a threat to the public order. You're a threat to these greater secular values. And if you talk about Christian moral values, you're violating the secular norms. And you're a bad person. That's where we've been. And I'm wondering if maybe we're going to be coming out of that now. But again, when people do, and there's a group of our society that does take part in this great awakening, there's going to be even more hate coming from the secular world. John 15:18 says, if the world hates you, this is Jesus talking, if the world hates you, know that it has hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world, then the world would love you as its own. But because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. He goes on and says, they persecuted me, they'll persecute you. That's it. They persecuted me, they will persecute So we got to talk about what it means to be persecuted. What does it mean, this word? You've heard it before, but what does it really mean? We got to define this word. So there's different levels of persecution. There's places around the world where you'll be killed if you're a Christian. So note that Nigeria is becoming one of the most dangerous places in the world for Christians. There was an attack at a church, killed 40 Christians. This was just a couple months ago. And of course, it never made American media. 40 Christians were killed in church. In 2021, 3,530 Christians in Nigeria were martyred for their faith. 3,500. Of the top 10 countries where Christians were killed for their faith, I should say the top 10 where the most Christians were killed for their faith, 9 of them were in Africa. 9 of the countries where Christians are killed for their faith are in Africa. Isn't that wild? But the country where churches, not just individual Christians, but churches have been attacked or shut down the most is by far China. In 2020, 3,088 churches in China were forced to close, and the ones that were allowed to stay open have been completely infiltrated by communist propaganda. And they got Mao up on the front of the church. And they're not churches. Government is God in China. So there's massive Christian persecution going on right now around the world. India has a lot of Christian persecution. There's this idea that to be truly Indian, you have to be Hindu. So the government there blocks a lot of foreign money coming into Christian hospitals or schools or churches in the name of protecting Indian national identity. There's a similar thing going on in Turkey. Like we gotta get back to Islam. So any Christian, anything is gonna be persecuted against. The Hagia Sophia is a good metaphor of this. The Hagia Sophia was originally built as a Christian church, 360. And then Justinian I built it what we know it to be today in 532. But then Constantinople fell to the Muslims in 1453, so the Muslims turned the church into a mosque. And it was a mosque until 1935, when the president then turned it into a museum. So it was a museum from 1935 until 2018, when it was turned back into a mosque in the name of Turkish nationalism. Fascinating, right? So you have a lot of persecution going on around the world, way worse than we have it in America. But here's why. Here's my theory as to why we don't have a ton of that obvious, explicit, physical, violent persecution against Christians in America. Here's my theory. They didn't need it. The pagans, the secularists, the atheists, the persecutors, they haven't needed to be violent. Do you know what I mean? With Christianity having been on the decline in America for so long, there's no need to kill Christians here. The culture is happy enough just keeping people from actually living their biblical principles. The secular culture is happy enough just letting people not take their faith seriously. In other countries, they have to kill the practicing Christians because the Christians there are an actual threat to their way of life. But in America, for these past few decades, even most Christians aren't very different from the world. So if the culture of the day can just get into people's minds and tell them that there's no such thing as truth, and tell people that they're born good and don't need a savior, therefore don't need saving, if they can just convince people that we all worship the same God, and nice people go to heaven. That's all it is. You just got to be nice, or at least nicer than that guy. And if our secular culture has been able to convince people that God isn't real, but if he is, you can pray to him every once in a while if you need something, and maybe he'll give it to you like some sort of cosmic butler, but he doesn't require anything out of you. An organized religion is mean and oppressive and keeps you from doing the things you want to do, like having sex with as many people as you want and all the fun things that you want to do in life. So if the culture can keep convincing people in America that these things are true, then there's no need to burn Christians at the stake. The culture is effective enough at keeping people from becoming Christian or living life as a Christian. But if there is, when there is a Christian resurgence in America, then you can expect to see the physical crackdown. We saw glimpses of that during COVID lockdowns. That's just a little taste of what even our American government is capable of in the realm of persecution. So there's 3 kinds of persecution to be aware of. Jesus says on the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are those who have been persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And here it is, "Blessed are you when men cast insults at you and persecute you and say all kinds of evil against you falsely on account of me." So the word persecuted, the Greek word means to follow. It means to press hard after, to harass, to chase down with the intent to harm. So there's this visual that this word implies of like dogs, like hounds chasing after a fox, continuing after with the goal of overtaking and destroying. That's the Greek concept of persecution, this word diokos. Right? So Jesus is saying, happy are the harassed. Happy are the people who are continually harassed by the world. Wow, what an attitude. What an attitude. What a response of being persecuted. Lack of fear, lack of shame. I'm going to be a Christian, and when persecution comes my way, just let it be. So that's the first form of persecution, is you're chased. You're chased away from things. You're chased away from jobs. You're chased away from the public square. You're chased away from TV. You're chased away from polite company, from elite company, from positions and places of influence. You're chased away. Some places around the world, you're chased away from your home. You're constantly chased and harassed. That's the first form of persecution. The second form is you're insulted. Blessed are you when men cast insults at you. The Greek word means to heap insults upon, to revile. So these are the people who mock you. Ah, you fool, you believe in a flying spaghetti monster? You're so stupid. The people who heap insults upon you. So persecution is to chase after. It can mean to insult. And Jesus also talked about those who slander, people who tell lies about you, attacking your integrity. That'll happen. You spend a lifetime to build your reputation, it can be crushed in an instant. You know, tolerance used to be the name of the game in our culture, but that ship has sailed. We live in a culture today where children's hospitals surgically mutilate children. They remove the body parts of transgender children. You think the people who do that are going to be tolerant of you? The more you speak the truth against what they're doing, the more you will be attacked. John MacArthur put it like this. He says, in a culture like we've had today, where Vanderbilt Children's Hospital and most other children's hospitals do these types of things to little kids, how can Christians be anything but the arch enemy of everything? And the more Christians speak out, the more intolerant they're going to be of you, and the more persecution that will come. So again, the theme of today's show, and we're going to get to maybe the happiness and the joy of this potential revival happening in America, but you got to count the cost. You got to know what's going to happen. Because if there's a revival in America of Christian values, that means we're going to speak out more and more against the culture of the day, which means that the world is going to hate you even more than it does now. John 7:7, Jesus says, it hates me because I testify about it, that its works are evil. So the more Christians rise up and say, that's evil, the more the world is going to hate you. But don't stress about the persecution. It's good. The persecution is good. God's greatest work is done in the midst of your suffering, always. The modern church has done a poor job in these last few decades of teaching about suffering. The prosperity churches teach you that if you have enough faith, only good things will happen to you. Therefore, when bad things happen, which of course they will, that's because you don't have enough faith. You need more faith. It's your fault. And that's wrong. Suffering is an expected part of the Christian life. It's a necessary part. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble. But take heart. I have overcome the world. Take heart. The Greek word means to be of good courage, to be of good cheer. I love that. Take heart. To be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. In this world, you will have trouble, but be of good cheer. The end is already written. James 1, one of my favorite scriptures, says, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Now, I don't want to be the person who just bemoans the broken culture of our day. I'd rather it not be like this in ways. No, let me back it up. I'm grateful that things are as bad as they are in our culture. When I grew up, culture was rotten, but it was good enough, and the rot was harder to see. So we let our guard down. But now it's so bad, it's obvious, more obvious than ever, that we need to do the opposite of what the world has been telling us to do. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that clarity. Some people say they don't want to bring kids into a broken world like this. I disagree. I want to bring as many kids as possible and raise them to be warriors against this broken culture and to be strong enough to face the persecution that will come from it. And that no matter what happens, take heart and be of good cheer and raise kids to be a light in a dark world. And I'm grateful that you are here to be that light as well. So is there a renewal of faith in America? I hope so. Let's be ready for it. Let's be ready for it when people ask. 1 Peter 3:15, always be prepared to make a defense for anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Be ready. Hey, thanks so much for watching that clip. I love when we do specials not about Republican, Democrat, but about good and evil and about the eternal things of life. I find these much more important, and I'm grateful that you do too. You can watch the whole special on the First TV app, but if you want more of that, you can check out our podcast, Politics by Faith, available everywhere you listen to podcasts. Politics by Faith, where we take the political, but then we really focus on the eternalness of what's going on around us. Politics by Faith.